Okay, hi, I'm Jacob Stebel. I am a atheist Jew from Long Island originally, who I grew up in a town called Smithtown. It's in Suffolk County. I was born in 1981. I lived a very white existence, I would say, although to, I think, a very liberal family, though I was not aware of politics or political leanings at the time. Grew up in a town that was, again, while very white and somewhat racist, also economically diverse. So, as I was saying, I felt very compelled to do well in school, but I wasn't really sure why. I guess out of respect for teachers. I was raised to be smart, and I loved reading books. I was always complimented on how smart I was, right? Because kids get complimented for all these sort of things that they're not really earned. I'm sure I wasn't smarter than anybody else, but when you get that positive feedback, you want to live up to it. So I read a lot, and I watched a lot of movies, because I grew up with a lot of movies. Because when you're growing up in Long Island in the 1980s, and the VCR just became a huge thing, and all of a sudden there were all these video rental stores, and that became the thing to do. When you have a lot of high energy kids who run around all day and get tired at night, you watch movies. So my entire childhood was spent watching films at night, and I really loved them. And I never really thought about making them. I was so interested in stories, whether it was the novels I was reading or the comic books I was collecting, which I still collect, or the films I was watching, TV shows I was watching, which TV was not good at the time, that I never really realized there was like a force behind the camera, a force behind editing these films, people writing these stories. Even though I like to write on my own, it just never hit me that this was something I can do. And then in 9th grade, the film Fargo came out, and I saw it and changed my life. And that was 2 years before that. I'd seen Clerks by Kevin Smith and Pulp Fiction in 1990. 1994 was just this incredible year for films. And when I watched Fargo, something clicked in my head where I said, a good movie can happen anywhere, even my boring Long Island town. You can make a good crime story everywhere about people's quirks, and it could be funny, and it could be violent, and it could be interesting and wholly unique. And I knew I wanted to make film, or filmmaking had to be part of my life. And when I was in the beginning of 10th grade, I remember sitting in the class and then while I'm sitting in my biology class, I'm seeing all these kids running around with cameras in the hallway. And I'm like, wait, how come I'm stuck in a classroom and these people are running around with cameras and look like they're having the time of their lives, and I think they're doing it for a class. I don't think they just let you run around with cameras in the hallway during a period. So I approached one of them after school that day, and I was like, just show me what you do. And his name is Will, and he showed me around. He exposed me to all these films, and my whole friend group in high school centered around going to movies and making movies and acting in films and shooting stuff. That was just what we did. And my senior year in high school was really hard. My parents went through this really terrible divorce. It was really awful. It really affected me hard. My father was not himself. My mother was changing quite a bit. My little sister was about to enter high school. So when I was entering my senior year, my sister was coming up, a freshman in high school. And I really wanted to shelter her from the worst of what was happening. So I did my best to keep out of it, but as a result, I was put in the middle of a lot of that divorce. So film became, and photography for that matter, became a really big escape for me. I spent all the time I could in high school in the video room, in my dark room, because I was the president of the photo club, my photography club, for 2 years. I had like over 100 people in that club. It was amazing. It was like the biggest after-school club I've ever seen. And that year I didn't really feel that creative. I just liked to be around it. I just liked to joke around with cameras, and I wasn't really making things. But back then it was like there was a show called Slacker TV. And it came on like March 1997. And it was like this big underground thing in Long Island. It was a sketch comedy show with these 3 guys who were a bit older than I was, and they were hilarious. And March of my senior year, so this is like 20 years and 2 months ago. It's crazy. That's, my God, I graduated high school 20 years ago. Wow. I met my best friend, Pete. So Pete was one of the guys from the show. So this guy is in my video room, and he's editing next to me, and to me, this guy's like a celebrity. I'm like, oh my god, it's a Slacker TV dude next to me, him. So I'm like, I better I want to impress this guy a little bit because I like his show. So I started editing some stuff that I had kind of half-assed, and he was laughing at the stuff I was doing. And of course I'm like, oh man, is that the next Slacker TV episode? And he's like, yeah. Basically, he worked out a deal with my film teacher. He needed a new place to edit, so he edited his TV show in my high school. And we became really fast friends. He invited me to act on the show and be a part of it. And again, he became my best friend. We started making films together. I went away to college. But I wasn't really serious at the time. Even though I always wanted to go to college, and it was my dream thing about I'm going to do so well. I'm going to be a pediatrician. That was my original thing. I didn't really take it that seriously because I was just so glad to be away from my parents. I was so glad they had finally moved apart right in the middle of my senior year, and I was so tired of dealing with it that when I went to college my first year at University of Buffalo, I didn't really care about going to classes. And even though I liked my classes, and my work was good, I had a roommate from hell, and I just started at some point just tuning out. And little did I know, I would sleep 15 hours a night, and I started feeling really poorly, and my face broke out. I started gaining all this weight, and I had no idea what was happening to me. I thought it was just depression. But all of a sudden, these classes, which again I enjoyed, I didn't think it was that important to go to them, but I enjoyed them. I stopped going, and I couldn't tell what was going on with me. And one of the doctors suggested I had a condition called sleep apnea. She said, and I didn't really know what that was, didn't really Google it. And so after that year, I realized I should probably not be away. I left Buffalo, I non-matriculated at Stony Brook, and the same thing was happening. I was taking these really cool classes at a college that I kind of liked, but I was more interested in just hanging out with my friends. I found that I was sleeping until the mid-afternoon, feeling really depressed, and then feeling okay in the early evening, so all my classes would be done. I'd have missed them all, and all of a sudden I'm like, all right, cool. Oh, my friends are shooting a film. Let's go do that. So to my mom rather, my father had moved down to Florida at that point. But to my mom, it looked like I was just some weird psychopath, just sleeping until 5, shooting movies with my friends till midnight, coming home, just basically throwing my life away, which I was, in many ways. So my mom made me get a job, which was probably a smart thing to do. I started working at Sears, selling TVs, learning what it's like to deal with the public. It was not a good job, although it was kind of hilarious. It's very it's hilarious. I'm building stories about that. But so I went to Sears, quit that job. Eventually, it was and then my best friend Pete, who I mentioned, he was trying to make a feature film. We made a bunch of shorts. We were doing that TV show, and he was just like, let's make a feature film. Let's make a real film. And he was trying to do it on his own, and he said he was trying to make it experimental. He didn't really have a script. We got a bunch of great actors together, and people were getting really frustrated with him. We don't want to make this. And so he asked me if I would write the film with him, if we would go take the general characters, but actually really have a story. So from 2002, from March to June, I probably went to, after working at Sears or whatever I was working with, had a program where I was working with kids, I would go to his house every night from 10 p.m. to about 4 in the morning, and we would just write. And then we started shooting August of 2002, and finished shooting in January 2005. Right? By that point, I had started working at managing Tower Records. Right? I had gone back to school at Hunter College, moved to New York City, moved back because I wanted to finish my film. And my sleep apnea, I was letting that go the whole time. And I was wondering why my sleep, even though I had this great life, I was really enjoying making a film. My parents' divorce had worn off. My sister was having a good time at college. I really liked my friends. I still felt really depressed, and I wasn't sleeping well. And then, sure enough, I decided to finally just listen to my mom go to the doctor, and it was sleep apnea. And then, sure enough, I decided to finally just listen to my mom go to the doctor, and it was sleep apnea, which I was warned about my freshman year of college. So I had this surgery that corrected the bones inside my nose to let me breathe better, undeviate my septum, and it was life-changing. It was I woke up with so much energy. And I have a big tea collection, which you might see at some point during this thing. And the reason I have this tea collection is because smell is a big part of taste. And as a kid, I guess up until the surgery, there was a lot of that I never tasted before. I could taste salt, I could taste sweet, but all these little nuances, like drinking a hot liquid would just be like hot water, just colorful hot water. I didn't understand what tea was. I didn't understand the soup beyond the salt. And I could taste. I could like smell things for the first time, and it opened up this whole world. And I had all this energy, and I felt fantastic. My depression was literally cured overnight. And at that point, I was managing this. Right at that point, I started managing this movie theater that I loved, called the Cinema Arts Center, independent movie theater. And I probably saw every movie that came out, every independent movie that came out between 2005 and 2012. Like, you name it, I saw it.